Our next speaker is definitely dressed for the weather. She's about to bring a little bit of sunshine to this awful, awful day. She's very passionate about her beliefs, as is the rest of her family. But on this occasion, she wants to speak up for the freelancers in the business. So please, welcome Ellie Phillips.
Hello. Yeah, definitely too high for me. I want to talk about freelancers because I'm a freelancer, and I feel like over this past 18 months, I've really realised that people do not understand how freelancers work and why we've been excluded. So I just wanted to let you know a little bit about it in kind of layman's terms, because it's how I best interpret it. So in the UK, aside from company directors, we've got employees and we've got self-employed workers. Both are paid in very distinct ways. Employees have a salary, which is taxed by PAYE, and the self-employed workers have invoices and tax returns. But there are also over 1.8 million PAYE freelancers and 0 hours workers in the UK. And for almost a year now, they have been excluded by this government. They've been cast aside as though their contribution to society and the taxes that they've paid are somehow not good enough to allow them to access financial support during this crisis. Despite being taxed at source, PAYE freelancers, and they're not employees of any company. In fact, they often work for multiple companies at the same time. They're not self-employed either, because they don't submit a tax return. And because of this, because of how they pay tax, Rishi Sunak has excluded them from both furlough and the self-employment income support scheme. PAYE freelancers and 0 hours workers are essentially casual workers with no employee rights. And so because they aren't guaranteed hours like any of the companies which they freelance for, they were the first to lose work during the pandemic. They were also simply locked out of accessing the self-employment income support scheme grants. Computer literally said, no, you're not having it. And furlough, as we know, was at the discretion of companies who had no legal obligation to help their employees, never mind freelance workers. In fact, research by an organisation called Beck2 found that only 2% of freelancers across the UK were furloughed by even one of the companies they worked for. On top of that, we know that grants are that loans are totally different to grants. We know that loans are debt. But PAYE freelancers and 0 hours workers couldn't even access bounce back loans because they were specifically for businesses. And we're not businesses. Freelancers are businesses. PAYE freelancers, they're not limited company directors. They can't pay themselves via dividends. They can't claim back expenses to reduce tax bills. They're simply independent workers who are taxed at source. Next page, please. And yes, as we've heard today, they exist in media and culture and hospitality sectors. But there are hundreds and thousands of us in education, charity, transport, IT, law, finance, sports, fitness, construction, and even within our fabulous NHS. And after a year and a half of having no financial support, these PAYE freelancers have maxed out their savings. They're in debt, homeless, in arrears, surviving on food banks, handouts, selling their belongings, and majorly suffering with their mental health. Because while they've been pushed into poverty, those who were furloughed or managed to access government grants have actually managed to save money. So the injustice is just simply unbearable. Now earlier on, I mentioned that we have 1.8 million PAYE freelancers and 0 hours workers in the UK who've been excluded. There are also around 670,000 more self-employed taxpayers who are excluded from accessing support because of things like PAYE employment from up to 3 years ago, pension withdrawals, bereavement payouts, carers allowance, all of which were wrongly calculated as PAYE income for the purpose of excluding them from the self-employment income support scheme. So, I hear you ask, what is the solution? Well, the thing is, the solution is so painfully simple. That's almost what makes this so harsh. That's what makes it so unbearable. Next one. All Rishi Sunak needs to do is remove those things like pension withdrawals, bereavement payments and carers allowance from being counted as income, because it's not income. And then the Chancellor needs to scrap the 50% PAYE rule and backdate support to March 2020 based on overall income, regardless of how the tax has been paid. Because whether the tax has been paid by PAYE through a tax return, it should not matter. Oh, thanks, babe. Either way, it's been paid, and HMRC has all of that information. So how can it be open to fraud if we're using the information that HMRC has? Looking to the future, the real problem is that the number of PAYE freelancers and zero-hours workers in the UK is doubling each year. This insecure way of working is becoming rife within the economy in the UK. So when the next pandemic inevitably hits, even more people will be screwed by these gaps in support if they aren't fixed now. But Rishi Sunak, he doesn't care if you lose your home, because he's got at least 4 mansions to swan about him. Our Chancellor will never know what it's like to worry about feeding his kids, because Daddy's a billionaire. And the only time that you're going to find Rishi Sunak anywhere near a food bank is for a PR photo opportunity. So today, let's send a message from Liverpool to whichever mansion he's currently nice and toasty in, and let Rishi Sunak know that Scousers will not stand for him deciding that it's okay to leave the most vulnerable people in our society out in the cold.
Many of you, of course, might recognise Ellie. She's the show business reporter on GB News.